Good evening, everyone. This is Jay Simmons, president of Mach 30, joined by Greg Moran, Mach 30 vice president. Say hi. And this is the June 2015 Mach 30 Reports Hangout. It's been a very exciting month here, both at Mach 30 and in the open source and spaceflight communities. So we've got a very exciting Reports Hangout to share with you tonight. And we're going to start off with something from Greg.
To kick things off, we definitely wanted to say welcome home to the crew that just landed, the ISS Expedition 34, I believe it is.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, two cosmonauts and one astronaut. Notably, the Italian astronaut, Samantha, I just had her name. Where did it go? It's an Italian name, Cosmoretti, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I apologize. But she just set the record for longest female stay in space. So at just shy of 200 days. Congratulations to you.
Indeed, indeed. Welcome home and congratulations for sure. That's crazy that there's been 30 some odd expeditions. I can still remember vividly the launch of the first Russian component and the first expedition and things like that. So
okay, thanks to Google, I have it. Samantha Cristoforetti from the European Space Agency. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Google. And yeah, that's very cool. Great news.
Milestone.
Yeah. I love whenever they push boundaries like that. You know, it's all part of the spacefaring civilization business, right? That endurance in space, you know, continued presence. The ISS is a great example of that in general, but the longer stays up there lay good groundwork for
and the connection on social media. The Twitter pictures, amazing photography and engagement with the broader audience and community. She did blog posts and video posts with Destin from Smarter Every Day. She did cooking demos from the space station, all kinds of engagement. So good deal.
I missed the cooking one. I saw the one with Smarter Every Day. That was a great video. That whole video was great, but the ISS piece was amazing. The cupola remains one of my favorite things they've done there because of its aesthetic value, because of its just sense of presence and awe. Space deserves that. It shouldn't all be little portholes.
Amen.
All right. I'm gonna take us around to the next pass on our list of topics, and that is that we are rapidly coming up on Mach 30's second annual Apogee conference.
Less than a month. Actually, 1 month to go. Yes.
So last year, Apogee was in Indianapolis. It was in early July in Indianapolis.
And we'll look forward to seeing you guys here in the DC area. So I'm looking to welcome you.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a good event. We're running the evening of the 10th through the 13th of July. We'll be primarily in the Arlington area, but some of the big stuff that we'll be doing is on Saturday the 11th. The morning, we're going to do another hackathon event. We did last year. We did a couple of different work sessions and hackathonish type stuff. The big stuff that came out of that, I think the biggest thing was the inspiration for all of our contributions towards CAD Query, which is our preferred CAD environment now, which was a big thing to come out of last year. And this year's event is also focused on software, but instead of CAD, we're looking at software development environments. One of the things that we have to do a lot of is write small pieces of code, especially stuff that has GUIs with it. Shepherd is one of the really great examples of that. It looks like it's all hardware, and there is quite a bit of hardware, but there's actually quite a bit of software there. And the software is absolutely critical.
Just as important. Software yeah, you can't run the hardware without the necessary back end to make things work, turn things on and off, and collect data. So just as important.
Yep. So we've been in the run up for work that we're doing. In the run for work we're going to do next year with more test stands, we've been really thinking about how we're going to do the test stand interface, because that was one of the areas that we wanted to really improve on from Shepherd. And there's some really interesting stuff happening in maker-friendly and lighter weight coding for user interfaces, which is one of those things that's actually, ask any software developer, user interfaces are one of those things that traditionally take a lot of coding time and a lot of expertise. And so when amateurs like a group of rocket scientists and mechanical engineers do GUIs, usually they aren't so pretty and they're kind of rough around the edges. But a couple of packages have been really promoting a more maker-friendly development environment, and we're going to actually do a bake-off between them, between two that have really caught our attention. One is Live Code, which is a package that's that Matt Mayer, our friend and volunteer, has really taken a shine to. He's become a kind of evangelist for it. And so we're going to have him and some teammates work with Live Code. And we've got in the Python camp a library called Kivy that is also supposed to be very maker-friendly for graphical interface design. And so we've got Jeremy, one of our local Python gurus, and we're going to grab a couple other of our Python fans. And Greg, you and I will act as systems engineers, speccing what the user interfaces need to provide capability-wise to replicate capabilities for something like Shepherd. And we'll use a canned data source. We won't actually fire Shepherd the day of the event because we want to focus on the GUIs. So we're going to have some canned data that we can stream to the GUIs. And you and I will do some spec work, and we'll give feedback, and the two teams will that day do quick prototyping, because these things are supposed to be very lightweight and very prototype friendly, of competitive user interfaces to those specs, and we'll see how the development goes, how the code looks, how the tools perform, and how easy it is for those teams to meet specs and produce something with minimum effort compared to what we did for Shepherd.
That sounds interesting. I hadn't heard the details of that part of the Apogee event yet. So now you got my interest up. I'm piqued.
Yeah, Jeremy and I were really excited when we were putting that together. Matt's on board, Jeremy's on board, and we're wrangling up a few other team participants to join the two team leaders, the camps.
Yep.
So there you go. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. That's how we're going to spend our morning.
I'm glad you actually put me in the systems engineering group and not in one of the coding camps, because I would be used.
It is supposed to be maker friendly. We almost threw you under the bus. No. And then Jeremy, no. We can't do that.
You want to actually test the capabilities of the software, not the capabilities of the participant.
Yeah. Plus, this way, you and I get a chance to reimagine a little bit what the test stand control system should look like. We threw the system together pretty quick on the software the first time for Shepherd. And this way, we get a pair of rocket scientists getting to sit down and really think about it for a little bit.
Well, I'm happy to help.
Instead of just throwing something together. So I'm psyched. I think it'll be another fruitful thing. Last year, CAD Query came out of stuff. This year, we'll see. It'll be good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so the other event that day, the one I'm more participating in, or more involved in the planning, the public outreach event, that one has been in the works for a couple of months, and we're styling it after TEDx presentations, if anybody's familiar with the TEDx style talks. Basically, you have a couple of experts talking about subjects which they're passionate, and you get a chance to hear the spiel from Mach 30 and then ask some questions. So we're doing that not at the Arlington location, but at the Nova Labs Makerspace out in Reston. So we have their classrooms reserved for 3 of these TEDx-style presentations, and you guys might recognize these topics. If you're familiar with Mach 30, you know we're all about making, we're all about open source, and we're all about space flight. So there'll be 3 presentations on those 3 topics.
Very cool, very cool. I'm really looking forward to that.
This is really our first chance to engage with the local community here, more than just me showing up at places and talking about what I do for fun in my spare time. So this will be a chance for our message to go out in a more professional forum.
Yeah, yeah. It's also going to be nice to engage with such a large and active makerspace in an intentional way. I very frequently will drop by makerspaces randomly when I travel, but to have an event at a large and active makerspace like Nova Labs is going to be very exciting. And you know, the other thing that I am really happy about is that I've been sharing some previews of the material that we're going to do, and hey, we're joined by Aaron. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the Hangout. We are on the air. I'm very excited about how well the messages are being received. Like just previewing the content that we're going to be talking about is going over very well. So I'm very excited about how the night's going to go.
And for those that can't be there in person, we want to make a note that we are going to try to record these and package them up on the website so you can find the material after Apogee's done. The website should be set up so that we have a place to put the making, the open source, and the space enthusiast presentations. So keep your eyes out for that too.
Outstanding.
It's going to be it's going to be a very big event for us. Apogee 2 is really coming together, and I couldn't be more proud of the work that people are putting in to get ready for the conference. So, if you want to learn more about Apogee 2, go to mach30.org/apogee-ii for Apogee 2. So, we in these hangouts, we also like to talk about things that are happening in the broader communities that we work in, and it has been a crazy busy week over in the open source hardware community. I've got 3 things that have all hit my inbox in like the last 7 or 8, 9 days. Mm-hmm. The first is I am very, very happy to report that the Open Hardware Summit for 2015 has a date, a location, and registration is open, and they're taking paper and presentation and demo proposals. The summit is going to be in Philadelphia this year. So if you guys remember, it was in Rome last year. It was the first year that we did Rome. Yeah, go figure. So that was the first year we missed. We've actually been, Greg and/or I have been to every Open Hardware Summit up until last year's. The moment we saw that the open hardware community was coalescing around an event like this, we said, we got to be part of that. So I'm very excited to see it on the East Coast. I have every intention of going. I haven't registered yet, but I have every intention of going so that we can get back on our streak of attending. I'm excited to report that the Export Control Task Force is planning to submit a paper topic as a follow-up to the presentation I gave at the Boston event in 2013. And the actual summit is September the 19th for those that are interested in attending. Put it on your calendar. The demos are always very good. The presentations have gotten better and better every year. And like I said, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue make a status report on how the work of the Export Control Task Force has been going, because they were very interested in that when we presented in 2013.
I'll have to check my calendar on availability, but I'm penciling it in right now.
There you go.
And another bit of open source hardware news, I saw that one come across my desk. They're asking about certification and what it would take to qualify as open source hardware, and who should be doing registration or certification of open source hardware projects. Jay, I don't know if you had a chance to, but I gave them a little bit of feedback in a response to their blog post.
There is a series of there's a series of like 11 forum threads on the OSHWA forums.
And I'll ask a specific question that you
yes.
Needed to respond to.
Yep, I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
I do 1 or 2 a night, and I've been working on it since the first day I saw it come over my inbox. I am. The short version is I'm so far the kind of answers I've been giving are I'm in favor of some sort of certification, preferably self-certified. I don't think we would need another patent and trademark office type event where there's a backlog of registrations. But I do want to see something that's enforceable. I have spent far too many times going to Kickstarter and going, ooh, and open source, insert cool thing X. And it takes all of 2 minutes for me to realize that they're not. They've just splattered the open source logos all over their stuff in order to raise publicity.
Right.
And so I think when there are bad actors, there needs to be a way to put the kibosh on that.
Yep, so I agree, and there's lots of nuance to each of those questions, and unfortunately I did it on my phone after having arrived at work, so I didn't get a full answer to each question, but I did put my first blush thoughts down.
Good. So. Well, I encourage everyone in the open source hardware community, all the Mach 30 folks, and anyone that works on open source to give feedback. The general process is they've got an open window of feedback, then they're going to try to collate the material into a proposal, and then if there's not an obvious direction the community is heading in, they reserve the right to do another round of more directed feedback around the areas that are OSHWA, yep, that are still unanswered, that are unconsensed, with the goal of by the summit being able to put forth a 1.0 process.
That's good that they have a timeline in mind as well.
They did something similar with the definition,
yep.
And so I'm not surprised. You're right; it's a very good thing, but I'm not surprised. This is the way OSHWA, this is the way they roll. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting, they were asking Greg, because you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, is the idea of where does open source stop? You know, I've been on the forums, you know, using the phrase, "Are you going all the way down to the atoms?" Because there are open source researchers and groups that are trying to do down to material science type open source, and they want to. They're looking at, you know, going from I went and dug some dirt up and smelted it and got ore, and then I treated it, and then I formed it, and then I machined it, and then Whereas, you know, other folks are like the Arduino, right? It's buy this chip from this vendor and buy LEDs of this classification, right? Anybody's will do, and produce or acquire in some way this circuit board and put it all together like this. Those are both things that are, I think, accepted practices of open source right now, but they're very, very different. And so there's a lot of questions going on in the forum about how do you recognize those differences. I think Aaron was the one who used the word spectrum maybe first, and I have been borrowing that term, Aaron. I don't know if you've been following my responses. Yeah, open source and all that. And then I've been talking about like orthogonal dimensions, that there's different pieces of the spectrum. What do you say in there?
Blue box that so people can read it.
Friends don't let friends patent rounded corners. Nice. I hadn't seen that OSHWA card before.
Yep.
So anyway, there are a lot of nuances, and I think it's important to separate some of those out. And so I've been talking about there's a difference between scale and the level to which you go to, and regulatory issues like ITAR, right? That all those things need to be considered in some way, but they shouldn't be confused for one another.
Yeah, and you should definitely, honor the commitment to go as open as possible, where the laws are the holdup, and at the same time abide by the laws of the land. There should be some kind of ability to honor that process, even though that it is not, by the strictest definitions, open source.
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me is I think it was Katerina maybe was one of the ones that was saying, look, open source hardware shouldn't require you to break the law. That it's built on the law, so you shouldn't break the law to honor it. And she was one of the ones that very quickly, I think it was her, but someone in the original founding group very quickly got on after some of the stuff with export control got out there with like the defense distributed, and people were like, no, wait, this is not quite the same as what the open source software people did. No, we do not need people going to jail. It's not against the definition to obey one law and restrict access because you're trying to obey one law while using another law to promote freedom. So
right.
That was actually that line of thinking went differently than the open source software community did in some ways. It makes it a lot easier.
It's a structurally different concept, and so while in name this open source software and open source hardware communities tend to parallel each other, there's very, very distinct differences, and that's one good example of that difference.
Yeah, but there's still a parallel, because some cryptographic software is restricted by export controls by both EAR and what is it, Treasury.
Yeah, but there was a big pushback against that in the software community.
Oh, sure. But when the chips were down and something met the criteria that the government said this is export controlled, some people went to jail. And some people said, okay, we're going this far and no further.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, we don't need to invite those kind of problems. I mean, that's why the CTF exists. I also think that it's important that Arduino, something where it's founded on a proprietary chip, right, that still has a lot of open design, a lot of open specifications, right? Mm-hmm. I think the Spectrum stuff needs to also relate to that business about that's still open, right? That all the good work the Arduino team did is open, that they leveraged a piece of commodity proprietary technology that could be easily replaced by other similar things from other vendors. That's very different than if you went out and pick the 1990s Microsoft of chips, right? They're the only ones that make this exact thing. No one else can compete with them because of patents and stuff. And you go and build something on top of that, right? That's a very different thing. And I think that needs to count. I think that you need to recognize the Arduino-ness of things too.
Yep. So essentially, the information that they're seeking is feedback from all different parts of the community. So again, we encourage you guys to log on to their OSHPO page, check out their blog posts, figure out your perspective on these 11 different questions, and provide them feedback, because that's really what's going to help move the conversation forward.
Great.
Yep.
And now there is one more. There is one other open source hardware topic, Jay, that you had about CAD.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had missed this a while ago when the thread started up back in March, but it came back up real recently. there is someone working on in establishing an unconference this summer about open source CAD tools.
Which is software, but it's necessary for hardware projects.
Right, and that's been something we identified very early on. Real CAD tools, not SketchUp, right? Something that you can actually, and SketchUp's not even open, right? It's just free as in beer.
For some
something that you can do for some platforms, right? That you can actually generate the documentation, the engineering documentation that's required to validate that you produced the thing you were trying to produce, right? All that level of sophistication is not readily available in a lot of domains in open source software. There's some decent math analysis capabilities, though not in the documentation side. But outside of electronics, there's not a lot of good CAD tools out there that provide that level of sophistication that's required to do real engineering. And very early on, we said that's going to be a problem for us. We want to build rockets. They're kind of complicated. You kind of need to do the real work. So as early as the open source hardware documentation jam, we've been very actively trying to court members of the community to join us on that. And in fact, again, the business at Apogee 1 with CAD Query was in response to that need. And so now we've done a lot of work, mostly by we I mean Jeremy entirely, to contribute back to the CAD Query source base, in particular around making it more compatible with FreeCAD, because FreeCAD provides a nice GUI to work within as a place to start. It's not where they want to be ultimately. And we're making contributions like that ourselves because we see the need for that. So that someone's doing an unconference about it. Speaking of things that need to go on calendars, we need to go. We need representation there because we want to help. We are making those contributions and we need those tools.
Where is this unconference being held?
Probably in Boston. That's where the organizer is. If I understand the threads, it was only today that I saw that it rose to the top of my inbox in a place where it's like, what? Unconference? Open source CAD? Huh? Gotta go. So
yeah, we should find a way to put some links to this in maybe the description of the video or
yes,
on a blog post after the fact, so folks can check it out.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was excited to see that. It's I feel like we've been talking about that for years, so it's nice to see someone else getting excited about it.
Now, I'll say that it's related to hardware because CAD begets CAM and CAM begets bits to atoms.
Yes, exactly. That's absolutely it. Well, and I mean, a lot of people right now in the maker community are doing projects at the level where if you download the STL from Thingiverse, that's enough, right? You download it, you print it. Did it fit? Fine, good, yay.
Which works for
Almost
small projects. It works for less complicated or less critical parts. And when you start talking about rocket science and when you start talking about large temperatures and extreme forces, you're going to want something a little bit more reliable and a little bit more sophisticated.
Agreed.
So, yeah, that's sophisticated's the word for it.
Yep. So that's where we're headed, and I'm really excited to see that and help that along because while it's still software, it's more along the lines of my background in structures, and I certainly help contribute to that. Yeah.
Well, that about does us for this month's Hangout. We are, like I said, we're coming up quick on Apogee 2, but we're also coming up on one other thing that I want to preview for next month. So clearly next month we'll talk about Apogee 2. But another big thing that we'll talk about next month
Drum roll,
is...
please. Here's a teaser.
Here it is. That's right. The Engineer Speak community is about to finish its first sprint on the Yavin thruster, and I'm very excited to report that we will be bringing a full status update on the progress of the Engineer Speak team on all the work they did over the last 6 weeks. It's been very, very impressive. I say that as a member of the team, but also as a guy looking at things from the board's perspective. And let me take a quick moment to show you a preview of what they've been working on. This is a screenshot that Jeremy sent me of CAD modeling of the chamber of a demo chamber from the tool set that they're building to do the Yavin thruster. So all this is CAD query, and this is in FreeCAD. All this source code turns into that whole object there. Very, very excited to show you live demos, and maybe, if we're really lucky, a 3D printed version of the demo chamber after coming right out of this design. So a lot of work went into that. So I'm super, super excited to bring you guys the full story of that in July, along with all the results from Apogee 2.
And for the folks that haven't heard about Yavin Thruster before, it's an attempt to go kind of end to end from design to prototype and test with parametric modeling, with CAD software, going from files to printed versions, with testing prototype and collecting data at the end. So this really rings out another end-to-end systems engineering process. So that's really exciting for me as well.
Thank you, Greg. That's I'm super excited to show you our progress next month. It's going to be good stuff. And with that, I want to thank everyone for watching the Reports Hangout tonight or later on YouTube. To remind you guys to check out mach30.org, and in particular to sign up for the mailing list and follow us on social media. Like this video, as they say, and in the upper right-hand corner of the Mach30 website, check out the donate link, because, like they say, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. So we rely on the gracious donations of time and financial support from our volunteers and supporters. We appreciate all of that, and it's without any of you, it wouldn't be possible to do what we do. So again, thank you, and check us out. And with that, I will bid you good night, and ad astra persivitatem, to the stars through community.